Hello, good afternoon. My name is Juan Bautista Propato. I'm currently working for Football West in beautiful Western Australia. I'm a PE teacher, a master degree in high performance in sports, and I've been working in football for more than 20 years. One of the countries I spent many years, more than 10 years, was in New Zealand, and I met Tony. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. You, Juan?
Good, mate. You're looking good, looking sharp.
Yeah.
So, Tony, tell me a little about yourself for the people that don't know you much.
I'm originally from the UK, but I've been in New Zealand now for quite a long time. So I've been here for 17 years. Yeah, still got English accent, but with a little bit of Kiwi thrown in there. But yeah, I've been here for quite a while now, and I have 3 kids. 2 of them were born here. One came here when he was very young. So they're Kiwis. And and I've been since I was in New Zealand, I've mainly worked in football, full time in football or sport in general, and currently hold a couple of roles. So the director of football for Eastern Suburbs Football Club in Auckland, and also head coach of the New Zealand Under-20 men's team. So some good exciting times ahead.
Awesome. So tell me a little about how was that, because if I'm wrong, you can correct me. You started as a FTC coach, so Federation Training Center coach, to then assistant coach of the Football Ferns to head coach. How was that transition, that pathway?
Yeah, I've done a bit of everything really. I've done, I started off coaching at club level, coaching at school level, community sport, then moved into working at the FTC, the Federation Regional Representative level. And then was lucky enough to get the opportunity to work in the national team setup. Originally it was just doing the equipment, balls, bibs and cones, man, like doing all the things in the background to enable the coaches to do what they could do. And then my responsibility just grew from there. And my first role with the national team was as a technical analyst. So that whilst I was still coaching, but I was a technical analyst for the team, which was fantastic for my coaching because I was in good environments with good coaches, really learned how important the analysis of the game is. So spend a lot of time watching football. Then gradually my roles grew from being the analyst to being the assistant coach of the national team. My first head coach role of the national team was with the Under-20 women, went to the World Cup in 2010. And then when the coach left in 2011, I became head coach of the Football Ferns, the New Zealand women's team. So it's been, I've been quite fortunate. I've had a lot of good opportunities. I've worked hard, but I've had a lot of good opportunities. But really just going from working at school, club level and just working hard and accumulating the hours of coaching. Got some opportunities, took them. And had some amazing experiences that I never thought I would have had in football. So it's been a really good journey.
Awesome. I remember in one of the conferences, your case was presented because they were saying, he really started, like you say, working at school, working at club, FTC, and then all the way up. So if you did mention a few things about this, but what are the 3 key points or learnings or something that you have that you think took you from being a club coach, FTC, into coaching a national team?
I think number one would be, and it's still something I pride myself on today, is just a lot of hard work. I've always been a hard worker. When I wasn't working in football, when I started working in football, I've always done that little bit extra. Maybe doing those things which other people aren't really prepared to do, that work behind the scenes. So I think that was important. And I've always been a keen learner. So I would class myself as a student of the game. And so spending a lot of time learning about the game, learning how to coach, learning from good coaches, reading. I think it's really important. So hard work, but learning as well. And then I think probably the last one is just not being scared to fail, because sometimes you get thrown in at the deep end. I had a coach that threw me in at the deep end a lot, and it's sink or swim. And I think sometimes you can avoid those opportunities because you're scared to fail. But I've always been of the opinion, just go for it, because you're going to learn. And I think that's held me in good stead. So I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I continue to make them every day and deliberately make them. But I think, yeah, with hard work, a willingness to learn, and a willingness to put yourself out there and not be afraid to fail, I think that's really important lessons for any coach. But there are still 3 things that I hold true today, even though I'm working at a better level now than I was when I first started, obviously. There are 3 lessons I think all the best coaches in the world would have. Yeah, and they've just, yeah, as I said, I've been quite fortunate to have some really good opportunities along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it? But even if we think about life in general, you know, to have whatever profession you have and goals you want to do in your life, family, personal life, all those things, and probably I don't give up attitude that many times they are together with the hard working philosophy and, like you say, a student of the game and don't give up, are those things that could be for players as well, for anyone really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think if you enjoy what you do, and your work really closely relates to your personal why, and my personal why is to help individuals and teams realize their potential. So whether that's football now, whether that's in future in different field, that's what I love doing, supporting people to be the best they can be. So I don't mind working hard to do that because it's something I enjoy. I take great pride in seeing people succeed and thinking that, you know, there's maybe I played a part in that, or at least I haven't got in the way and ruined it. So yeah, I think if it does relate to exactly why you get out of bed in the morning, I think that's a really good way to do it. If you don't enjoy it and it doesn't relate to who you are as a person, then I think it becomes hard work. But that, yeah, it doesn't seem like hard work a lot of the time, even though I put a lot of hours in.
Yeah, no, it is true. So if we think about that career, do you have anyone on your years of coaching that aspired to become better, or you pick from different coaches a few elements where, oh, I really like how he managed the players, or I really like how he's doing the session, or was more about yourself developing?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I've always been a driven person, and I still am. But definitely, I've been so fortunate again. And I mean, you put yourself in these situations where you can mingle with some top people, but I've been very fortunate to work with, alongside, and learn from some unbelievable people. You know, probably when I first started coaching, the coach I would have worked with the most would be John Herdman. So John Herdman was the coach of the New Zealand team before I was, and he's gone on to do great things in Canada. And he was a fantastic coach in so many ways. Again, a student of the game, very good at the on-field stuff, but also very good at the off-field stuff as well, and an unbelievably hard worker. So again, he probably was a little bit of a role model in that way, to show that if you work hard, you can achieve good things. So he had a big influence on my coaching at the start. And then since then, I've just, you know, Rob Sherman, who I know people in Australia will know very well. I've known Rob now for a long time, and you know, he's someone that, you know, I think sometimes I describe people as having good knowledge, but Rob, I think, has wisdom. So someone like him, someone that you can just pick up the phone or pick their brains. And I've been lucky to go on multiple tours with Rob, and you know, you're always learning bits and pieces from people like him. And I've also been quite fortunate in New Zealand. You can work with other sports quite closely because it's so small. So just working with, you know, psychologists that work with other sports, and you know, a lot of top people in New Zealand outside of sport as well that I've just learned from. So I just do my best to surround myself with the best people. And yeah, a lot of the people that worked in my staff, you know, were better than me in a lot of things. So I'm learning from them all the time. So I think that's just the key: is surround yourself with good people, be open to learning, be vulnerable when you don't know something, ask a question. And yeah, for me, that's really important. But yeah, some significant people along the way have definitely helped me. And you know, I've had to work hard as well. But again, I've been very fortunate to come across the path of some great people.
Yeah, a really good point you made over there about learning from other sports, especially in New Zealand, when it's a relative small country. But if we look at statistics, at the last Olympic, if we think about money that invests and the number of success or medals, New Zealand is the most successful country in the world. So it is a lot. And you're still there in New Zealand. I was there many years, and you learn, for example, from the All Blacks, but rowing, so many sports with not much budget like probably you have at the Football Ferns. You need to do your best and maximize the training, the time, and the Kiwis are team when people think they are not going to do well, they are going to do well. They know they are ready to step it up, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And again, because it is so small here, and when we was with the Football Ferns, we had great support from the government in the form of High Performance Sport New Zealand. I was on a 3-year coaching course with a cohort of top coaches from different sports. Got to spend time with the All Blacks coaches. Got to spend time at the Crusaders environment for rugby here, hockey, and there's some great coaches in New Zealand, because in New Zealand there's always a lot of barriers and challenges. I mean, there are in every country, obviously, but there's some really unique ones here, and that's we're quite isolated. I mean, Australia would be similar, obviously, but we're kind of isolated. There's not as much money, and when we do have competition, it costs a lot of money to play it because we have to travel so far. Typically the competition age of our players is a lot lower than around the world because we just don't have access to international competition like you would say in Europe. So I think coaches in New Zealand have to be quite innovative. They have to be creative. They have to be really resourceful with what they do have, and they have to work hard. So you could always learn stuff from coaches in New Zealand, because I think that innovation has to be there, because you can't just simply do what others do, because you just don't have the luxuries or the resources that they do. So yeah, I've learned a lot of the things from people in New Zealand from outside of football.
Yeah, I mean, and talking about success, looking at statistics, probably you are the most successful New Zealand football coach with 22 wins in international games, and also when you were coaching the Football Ferns, was the highest FIFA ranking 16, and probably if you got those home game with scoring a few more goals against Papua New Guinea, you probably would be 15, but it's still amazing. So the question is about, and I was in one of your presentation about what was the change that something you bring into that team to change and compete. I remember you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, beat Brazil in Rotorua 1-0, and then drew against top nations. So I remember, and the gap was getting smaller, even at the World Cup with the against Holland, crossbar, you could win that game and go to the next round. So you were really close. Olympics quarterfinals, I believe, 2012. Yeah. So all that success, and many people look, they could do this, even this, but if you look and see and listen what everything you guys achieve, it's amazing. What was the plan behind that?
Yeah, I think, again, I would like to think that the time I was head coach of the team that we did improve and we got better. But I'm always one to make sure we recognize the people that have come before you that have enabled you to do that. So prior to me, I spoke about John Herdman before, who did an excellent job of taking the team to another level. But coaches before that as well. So there's people in New Zealand that have started women's football, who are volunteers, that first created a New Zealand team, had to fundraise to go on tours. All of those people get it to a point where now you're in charge of the team. You're the custodian of that heritage now. And I was really fortunate that the coach before me had laid such a strong foundation. So my job then wasn't to come in and change everything. It was to take what had been done, evolve it, build on it, just like the coach would have done if he would have remained, and try and make it better. And I think that was probably one of the key things, is if they would, because I was assistant coach before, it allowed that continuity. If you had brought someone else in from overseas, potentially they try and change things and they change what's great about the team. And what was really great about our team was the fact that we had a very strong culture. A lot of the players had been together for a long time. So one of my main aims was to really harness that, enhance it, make it even stronger, turn it into more of a performance culture, try and influence it to become more of a performance culture. So there's a real strong togetherness. And I believe during that period, we did move it from being more around togetherness to being more of a performance-based culture. And And also, the players, the coach before me had invested in a very young group of players. So then it was about, right now we need to maximize international experience for these players. So it was, I guess, taking the best of what we had before, which was this togetherness, this cohesiveness that had got us results we probably didn't deserve to get before my time. And then going, right, we've got to enhance that and keep it. But now what can we add? And I think the things we added were, there's a real emphasis on individual player improvement. So we always looked at it as in, you want to be greater than the whole. You want the whole to be greater than the sum of the parts, and we always were that with our culture. But then we wanted to say, okay, but we want the parts to be better now as well. So a lot of time in individual plans, individual training, trying to get players better, and really working hard to support players to go overseas. So whilst we thought we could train them well, they'd be better off in professional environments. So we had a lot of players going to professional environments. They'd come back in, battle hardened and ready to go. So I think, it's just a combination of taking what was already good and making it better, and then just trying to get those individual improvements with the players and getting players into better environments. And another thing we did is, we got a bit more money from the government, and that was, I think, largely due to the quality of our plan that we showed them. So we played more games as well. So we had more games against the best teams in the world. So we got to learn how to beat those teams or how to compete against them. And I just think it just grew in confidence, and it just snowballed from there and snowballed from there. But behind all that was a very strong plan that we stuck to. And and I'd give that advice to any coach, is you need to have a very strong plan that's adaptable and flexible, but then at least keeps you guiding along the way. And we had a good 4-year plan that we had all the way through to 2016, and we got a lot of benefits from that.
Yeah, I remember that plan, and probably what you show to the coaches attending was just a little part, was amazing how they were showing all the statistics, how you were competing against top nations. One of the questions around there is, so before you took over, that New Zealand team with John Herman was high pressing all the time, and they kind of, again, if I'm wrong, or I'm not saying exactly what it is, you can correct me, but we were spending a lot of time on the pressing. That is perfect, but we, watching game and also statistic and analysis for other people, we were losing games in the last 5-8 minutes. But when you came in, and I think maybe around that time also you did your pro license, you changed a little the playing style about trying to keep the ball for longer, because they figured out that pressing at that high tempo was not possible. So what was the change that they made to allow the team to be more comfortable on the ball?
Yeah, that was a massive part of the plan. So, part of the plan was around more games. Part of the plan was around more individual focus on development. Part of the plan as well was to adapt the playing style. And when you go to a World Cup and Olympics, if you want to win it, and that was always our goal, let's train and let's plan like we're going to win it. Because even if you don't, you need to achieve your potential. So you've got to set your sights high. And if you win it, you've got to play 7 or so games in a short period of time. You need to also play in heat. So it takes a lot out of you. And to win those tournaments, you've got to play against the best teams in the world who are the best at keeping the ball. So then we looked at it and said, well, the pressing's great and we're very good at it and we're world renowned for it. Is we didn't want to lose that, because again, that was one of the strengths we wanted to retain. So one of the strengths was our culture, another strength was the way we pressed, but we did want to be able to keep the ball more. And that was always part of a long-term plan anyway from the previous coach. So then when I took over the team, particularly after the Olympics in 2012, right, we've got 4 years now. We've got 4 years to get this right. So let's overplay even. So we play and we just play, a brand of football where we keep possession of the ball, so that when we do press, we can do it more often, we can do it with more sting, and we got better. And it was, I think, just some of it would be, I guess, faith from me to the players. Knew I didn't care if they made mistakes on the pitch, because the only way we were going to learn through doing it. So there was this real risk-rich environment that we created, in training, in games, to say, let's go and play. Another thing for us is we were a very small team. So we couldn't be a team that went long, for example. We had to play, because if we went long, we couldn't physically compete. So we had a lot of good small players, technical players. Yes, I think we just put a lot of faith in the players, and they knew that we trusted them. They knew that we didn't care if they made mistakes. We knew we'd have some blips along the way. I remember playing a game against Scotland, which was the first game in the 4-year period, and we just kept the ball for almost the whole game, but hardly attacked. But we just kept it. We won 1-0. We might have had like 4 or 5 shots, but maybe sort of 80% possession. But then that was part of the evolution of the team is, okay, first of all, we've got to back ourselves to keep it. And then the next phase we had planned was, right, now we've kept it. Now we've got to pick the right moments to go forward. And then the whole plan was, by the time we get through to the Olympic Games, is now we're a team that can keep the ball. We're a team that can hurt teams quickly if we need to. So it was a real plan across 4 years, across different tours, to say, okay, we're going to evolve this in one tour, this in another tour. So a gradual sequential plan. Which is a luxury you have when you've got a 4-year campaign. If you've got league games, you've got to win every week, you can't do that. But for national teams, we could do that. So I think it was just faith in the players and real clarity in the way we played, and clarity in the roles and responsibilities of the players.
And so thinking about that improvement, were you spending more time, for example, on the positional games, on the small side games, you were spending more time on? You talk about the confidence, but did you change something on training to allow the players to be able to have the ball for longer time, or was just almost like a player task? Can we keep the ball for longer, or something like that?
Yeah, we wanted, like, one of our main goals, again, was all part of the plan, is to have a playing style that the players fully understood. My philosophy is, if players fully understand their roles, then you remove the thinking. If you remove the thinking, then players can play more instinctively. But so to start off with, it was probably a bit more instructional to try and get players to play the way we wanted to play. So we did have to adapt the way we played, how the midfield supported the defenders. Things like dropping a midfielder between centre-backs, rolling midfielders into flanks to get the ball, trusting the goalkeeper to be able to play and switch play, those types of things. We worked a lot on that. So a lot of the first part of work was working in that back end of the pitch to give us a confidence to get on the ball, even if we're under pressure. But yeah, just constantly working on the same patterns and those types of things, so that it became, and when I say patterns, I'm on about like the principles. When someone's got the ball, they need support early. When we want to be able to shift play to the other side so we don't get locked one side. So we tried to instill some real clear principles, and then the aim was, and when we get to the Olympics, everyone fully understands the style of play, everyone fully understands their role, and then they can just go and play with freedom, with courage, and not have to think about things. That was the plan. It sounds easy. I wouldn't say we did that perfectly. We didn't get there and everyone playing with this unbelievable courage and freedom. There was still elements where we were improving, but I think it definitely improved and it grew. And even the individual plans that I spoke about before, they were specifically related to the person's role within how we played. So if you were a fullback, you'd be working on the things that are very specific to the way we play. So there was some team training, but because we saw our players not very often, because they were around the world playing in these pro leagues, is we were trying to influence them to improve the things individually, but so when they came back into the team, they could execute their role better.
And I guess that characteristic that individually you want them to improve was fitting with your playing style and what you want to achieve. And
yeah,
what's happening if that team play in a different position? How do you readjust that? Because I think even one of the key players, your team was center mid and then was playing overseas wide or something like that.
Yeah, we had one of our best players was a centre back, and she was playing as a winger in Germany. So it was hard, and I think that's why it was important to have the plans. So if that player, for example, one of her things she needed to work on was winning aerial challenges. That was one of the fantastic on the ball. Wanted to be better at winning aerial challenges. So then we'd have to work with her. It's very hard to speak to the coaches at the club because they've got a job to do. They need to win to keep their jobs. So, and whilst I think they've always got the best interest of the players at heart, they've also got some club responsibilities. So we would work with the players to say, well, for example, this player, okay, you've got these challenges to be able to work on the things we need you to work on, and we would just come up with creative ways to do that, whether it's training before training, after training, whether there were some elements of that role which did help her do her role as a centre back. For example, she was very good at stepping into midfield and dribbling past players, so actually playing wide probably enabled her to do that better. So we was always trying to find as many ways possible around the challenges we had so that they could work on whatever they need to work on, regardless of the style of play their team played or regardless of the position they played. But yeah, it was harder with some players than others.
Oh, very nice. I mean, I could be talking about that, the Football Ferns for days, but I want to ask two more questions. So the next one is, thanks for sharing all the information, and we could go into more detail. So now you're coaching Eastern Suburbs in the National League men's and the under-20s men's New Zealand. So do you see massive difference between the men's and the women's, coaching them, one and the other ones?
A lot of people ask me that because my main experience at the higher levels of the game is in the female side of the game. I've coached male football for a long time, but not at international level up until now. So probably the biggest, cause I haven't done too much work with the New Zealand team because I've got the role and then the pandemic's hit. So we haven't done too much work, but working with Eastern Suburbs, who, a great club. We were, when I took over, the current champions of the New Zealand. Probably the biggest challenge for me wasn't so much whether it's male or female, it was working in an environment where you've got a game every week. Because when you're working in the national team environment, you might not see the players for 2 or 3 months. You work really hard to plan, communicate behind the scenes and try and influence them in their environments and keep in contact and all those types of things. And then you have to plan so thoroughly that when you get together and you may have 2 sessions together before you play against America away, you have to go, how can we get the very most out of those sessions? How can we get the most out of the tour? How can we shift the culture more? How can we implement new things in the playing style? And the planning is immense. What I found in the club environment is, and I'm really enjoying it, is yes, the planning is, my planning I think is still to a high level, but you have a lot less time. So you've got to be a bit more concise with your analysis. You're training every day. But what I do love is the ability to structure your training week where it doesn't have to be so tactical, for example. So when you meet up as a Football Ferns, you haven't been together for 3 months and you've got 2 trainings and you've got a big game coming up. It has to be quite tactical whilst trying to develop a style. But when you might have 4 trainings across a week to prepare a game, you can work on more implicit learning. So you can put games on that players are learning the style implicitly. You can have a little bit of tactical. You can have some football conditioning. There's a whole raft of things that you can do to prepare your players for the game. So that probably for me has been the biggest change. And I think for me, football's football, whether it's men's football or women's football, it's the same. I don't know if I've adapted my approach. I've always been someone that's genuinely cared about the players. I've always been someone that drives high standards, and I've just maintained that now. I'm just doing it in a different way because we're training 4 times a week as opposed to 4 times in 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like you say, high standard, honest, hardworking men, woman. It's similar. I guess from personally my experience coaching men and women, I thought with the woman sometimes you need to be a little more careful the way you talk, the way you look. When men, they just there to train, and I don't know if they don't care, but they're there to play. They're there to play. When the woman could be a little more particular about, maybe you look that way, and why are you looking at this? So it's always inclusive, and you can be harsh, but you need to be careful. So yeah, I don't know, but every personality is different.
Yeah. I think for me is when you're working at the highest level, the standards are so high, and you ultimately want the players to drive the environment. And because I was at the Football Ferns for so long, we could set up the environment to do that. Coming in now to my role at Eastern Suburbs, again, really fortunate. I've taken over from the current All Whites coach, Danny Hay, so I was lucky with the Football Ferns. I'm lucky here. I'm a lucky man with football a lot of times. And he did a fantastic job of recruiting, of building a culture at the club. So it's been quite easy to come in and drive that because the standards are already there, the same as the Football Ferns. And again, a lot of the players drive the intensity in the training. And for me, I think as a coach, you've got a continuum. You might be really inclusive down this end and have a lot of player involvement and be more abrupt and instructional down this end. And it's about moving up and down that continuum. And maybe potentially you might spend more time down this end working with the males, but I think either way, you're always moving up and down. There's a time you need to be abrupt and tell. There's a time where you want to be inclusive. And I think the skillful coach, and I'm more skillful now than I was. I'm not as skillful as I will be in 10 years' time, hopefully, knows what side of the continuum to work on, and maybe it differs with different players as well.
Yeah, I guess my friends say experience comes with white hair, although we don't have many. Quite well.
A few coming through. There's a few, yeah.
So, and the last question is about advice for the coaches and players about the future.
Yeah, I think for me is probably number one for me is you have to love what you do. If you want to be, I ran a community coaching course yesterday, and I spoke to the coaches. This is for juniors. And I said to the coaches, your number one job is to instill a love of the game, or if they have loved the game, is to just enhance that love of the game, because whether that means you're active for life, or in the case of working with high performance football players, there's going to be tough times. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be setbacks. And it's that love of the game that gets you through. So when you're training hard for an Olympics and you're running and you feel like you're going to throw up, it's that love of the game will get you through. If you've had an injury, you do your ACL, you're out for a year, and you're then required to train really hard to get back, it's that love of the game. So I would say, whatever you do, preserve that love of the game. I think that's the most important. I'd say you've got to work hard. You've got to work hard. You've got to drive your own standards. And football is a hard game to succeed in because so many people love it. So many people want to work at the highest level. But I've always worked with the motto of do things other people aren't prepared to do. I've always worked on that motto is, I've got this bit of work to do. Should I do it? Yeah, I'll do it. Other people wouldn't do this. So hopefully that gets you to the next level. And I think that's really important as well. And just the last one for me is just act with courage, because a lot of the times people don't give themselves the opportunity to put themselves in situations where they're going to learn because they don't act with courage. So if you've got that hard work, if you've got you've got the love for the game, you've got the hard work, and you act with courage, I think it's a real asset for a player, because the more you put yourself out there, the more the mistakes you make. The more mistakes you make, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better you get. So I would say there'll be three things that I would sort of hold as real key values for me. And I would say that from seeing them working with the better players and coaches, they have those sorts of traits.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tony, for your time. And also for the people who don't know, Tony, I don't know, particularly with me, always been really approachable, be able to watch Football Ferns session, plans, everything. So really appreciate your time now, and I'm very sure if people ask for advice or whatever, you are there to help. So it's much appreciated. So Tony, once again, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Juan. I enjoyed it. I always love talking football. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Take care.
See ya.
Yeah.